Sega Genesis! It's a...
Sega!
Already did that joke.
Sega! 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 Sega!
We love Sega. That's the point we're trying to make here.
Mm-hmm.
Why is your Sega Genesis white?
I don't know.
Sega! What can we say about the Sega Genesis that hasn't been said a million times over? It's one of the biggest competitors, or was at one time or another, with the famous Nintendo. It made so many great franchises. It started a whole launch of greatness, and it's freaking awesome. And you know what? I love the Sega Genesis. I love it a lot. You know what? A lot of you do too, and that's why we're doing this list for you. Top 10 Sega Genesis games. But you know what? We're establishing a few rules this time around. So you know what? We're not going to have any 32Xs. We're not going to have any Sega CDs. No. What we're looking at is just the Genesis. Games that were only featured on this 16-bit machine right here. This thing, see, yeah, that's what we're doing.
But before we begin, we have to establish a few extra things. Unfortunately, we haven't played every single Sega Genesis game out there. I know, very sad. It's just our own personal top 10. But these are the Sega Genesis games that mean the most to us.
Sega Genesis, give us Genesis, Genesis, gotta get Genesis like nothing ever before. Genesis is so much more. Sega Genesis gives you more real villains, hot graphics, and killer two-player action. Genesis, it's a whole lot more. Genesis, gotta get Genesis.
Often overshadowed by Turtles in Time, the arcade game masterpiece, TMNT Hyperstone Heist is the standalone adventure on the Genesis that features its own standalone story similar to the Manhattan Project. The gameplay style was retained from Turtles in Time's adventure from before, but now had more redefined visuals, an added run button for quick escapes, and its own originality. While the overall game was a bit shorter,
It was still successfully able to deliver what made Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fun in the first place.
The only thing we could have suggested was the ability to play as Master Splinter, but I guess we can't have our cake and eat it too.
still, this is one TMNT game worth checking out.
Gotta get Genesis like nothing ever before. Genesis is so much more. Genesis, gotta get Genesis.
As part of a franchise that was much bigger than our understanding, this one is actually considered to be one of the best. Assuming the role as a young hero, you go on a journey to rid the world of the happy, smiling monsters terrorizing it. Those little freaks. You fight with its non-linear gameplay style. You must seek out power-ups and allies to aid you in your quest. It plays out a lot like a Metroid game combined with The Legend of Zelda. Heck, you even find an ocarina and you learn to play songs with it. No joke. The gameplay is very simple, yet it is very addicting.
Wonderboy Monster World is a fun, colorful action RPG that's accessible for everyone of all ages.
Just don't let those smiling faces fool you.
Gotta get Genesis like nothing ever before. Genesis is so much more. Genesis, gotta get Genesis.
One of the early games for the console, Golden Axe is considered to be one of the grandfathers of all beat-em-ups in the genre. And it's an all-around classic for the Genesis console as well.
Featuring 3 playable characters with their own magic bar and powers, you travel through 6 stages fighting hordes of evil from barbarians, skeletons, women, hey, they're evil too, statues, jade statues, and other things.
You can also ride dragons. I know, right? Oh, and did we mention the magic? It's awesome.
But the most awesome thing, without a doubt, are the death shrieks. We can listen to that all day. Dang, these dudes are getting it bad. Nevertheless, this is a short adventure, as you will probably get through it in about 20 minutes or so. But hey, at least there are sequels. Yeah, we should try them sometime.
Gotta get Genesis like nothing ever before. Genesis is so much more. Genesis, gotta get Genesis.
Oh yeah, now we're talking. Mega Man The Wily Wars, originally released for the Sega Genesis. Okay, I guess this one kinda needs a little bit of an explanation. Mega Man Wily Wars is a compilation game of Mega Man 1, 2, and 3 from the original NES, completely remade from scratch and given the Sega treatment. It was only physically released in certain countries, such as Japan and PAL regions, but for some reason, it never saw the light of day in the United States. Well, almost.
While sure, never a physical release was made outside of reproduction carts, the game could still be found in America through the Sega Channel.
What is the Sega Channel? Well, think of Netflix and how you pay a monthly service to get access to tons of movies and shows, and well, there you go. The Sega Channel was a peripheral you would attach to your TV and Sega Genesis console, and it allowed you to connect to their network. And this was in the 90s, so you can imagine how ambitious this all was. For a monthly fee, you would be able to purchase, download, and play Sega Genesis games, and among them was, of course, Mega Man The Wily Wars. Alright, now that that is out of the way, how is the game itself? Dr. Wily, having been foiled up to these 3 games, decided to somehow travel back in time to undo his mistakes and try again. After you as Mega Man defeat all 3 games again, you're given access to a completely original final set of stages for a new Wily castle. This is awesome because unlike any other Mega Man game to date, you get to mix and match weapons from the 3 previous Mega Man games to take with you on this final adventure. The game is pretty difficult, but it does deliver pretty well on what it offers. So if you're a pretty big Mega Man fan and somehow haven't heard of this game until now, we say check it out. If you're not a fan, still check it out. You might be glad you did.
Gotta get Genesis like nothing ever before. Genesis is so much more. Genesis, gotta get Genesis.
I can show you the world, shining, shimmering, splendid.
Okay, at first glance, you're probably thinking, what? Really? Really? Really, TBOG? You're putting a Disney game on a top 10 Sega games list?
Disney, the company that buys out everything?
Well, yeah. Believe it or not, back in the day, Disney and video games had a pretty intimate relationship. Oh yeah, it was hardcore.
And there were many games based on movie licenses, from The Little Mermaid, Pinocchio, The Lion King, the list just could go on and on forever. And nobody really has anything bad to say about these games. Why? Have you played any of them? They're freaking awesome! Not only do they live up to the source material, they hands down nailed the animation style that Disney was known for.
These games truly made you feel like you were living the movie that they were based on.
And there is no top contender like Disney's Aladdin. There may be some close seconds, but Aladdin nails it in about every way. Aladdin features fluent animation, done by Disney animators themselves, spot-on controls, and enough challenge to keep you invested. Not to mention, Aladdin uses a sword, which automatically makes everything better. And those jams, authentic Disney music at its 16-bit finest. Disney's Aladdin would go on to become one of the best-selling games on the Sega Genesis, and one of the all-time best movie licensed video games ever made. But if we had one complaint, that lava level.
Gotta get Genesis like nothing ever before. Genesis is so much more. Genesis, gotta get Genesis.
Oh yeah, now we're talking. Again. It's Castlevania. Do we have to say anything about it? Well, we're going to, so you know what? Shut up and pay attention to me. Up until now, the Castlevania series had been doing consistently well, always trying to incorporate new ideas for their next adventure for hunting down the creatures of the night.
In this game, you don't star as a Belmont. Instead, you find yourself in the shoes of these 2 new characters.
Jonathan Morris. Hey, he has the same last name as us. I wonder if there's a connection. Nah, who cares? Okay, anyway, your second playable character is a lance wielder named Eric Licard. A bit risque for the series, as the Belmont clan had pretty much been the face of the series, and excluding them from any vampire slaying was kind of unthinkable. But they had an interesting idea in mind, as John Morris is related to Quincy Morris from the Dracula novels. So, in a sense, this game is trying to tie together the Castlevania storyline with the Bram Stoker novels. All in one continuity. Huh, clever.
Pretty cool. Also, in America, we got the uncensored version, with all the blood and gore.
Ballin'! The game features beautiful graphics that pushes the blast processing to its limits with an option to play as two different characters with their own unique abilities. The variety of the gameplay is expanded with different routes you can take, not to mention exciting boss battles and the trademark music. Alright, the music is definitely one of the best original soundtracks that Castlevania had ever produced. Hot damn, listen to some of this. Today, the once great Castlevania series has been, unfortunately, relegated to pachinko machines. But games like this can still transport us back to the good old days.
Gotta get Genesis like nothing ever before. Genesis is so much more. Genesis, gotta get Genesis.
Alright, now this one was a really tough choice because between it and its sequel, these two games were really great. Abundant with plenty of excitement and hype. Also produced by Konami. Jeez. These developers used to be delivering on such greatness left and right. What happened? Well, I guess we'll figure that one out later. But for this choice in number 4, we selected the game that started it. Rocket Knight Adventures. I already did a standalone review of this game, so you guys already know what I think about it. But we can talk a little bit about it here. An opossum named Sparkster, due to many wars surrounding his childhood, lost his family to the hazards, and was adopted by the Rocket Knight warrior of the Zephyrius Kingdom. Trained in the art of being a Rocket Knight, defender of all that is good, Sparkster grows and becomes very competent in his craft. Then, well, all hell breaks loose as a rival Rocket Knight known as Axel severely wounds Sparkster's adopted father and teams up with the enemy Empire to overthrow the kingdom. Naturally, Sparkster has a problem with this, wouldn't you? And does a whole game to save the princess and foil the plans of the pig army. And Lord have mercy, this is one of the best platformers out there. Sparkster, with the holding of the A button, can launch through the air in any direction at high velocity, damaging anything he rams into, while swinging his sword, which also launches a whirling blade. This little guy takes no crap from anybody. Heck, he's more than happy to deliver an ass-whooping. Look at that face. Does that look like the face of mercy?
Let's not go crazy here. I mean, he's not a mad dog killer.
Going along with his insane ride, the visuals, the music, which was also produced by Akira Yamaoka, prodigy of the Silent Hill original soundtracks, Rocket Knight Adventures is one of the more memorable games on the old Sega for many reasons we've listed. For a more in-depth review, you should definitely check out the review of this game in our channel. During the 90s mascot wars with developers trying to come up with new faces for kids to love,
Sparkster, unlike many, managed to make it.
and that's why we honor him today.
Gotta get Genesis like nothing ever before. Genesis is so much more. Genesis, gotta get Genesis.
In the world of ninjas, you have quite a handful of recognizable assassins in the night to come to mind. Ryo Hayabusa, the Ninja Gaiden. Rikimaru from Tenchu. Strider from Strider. And hidden in the back behind all of them is that one ninja. The one that is said to be the greatest of them all. The one that has beaten all the odds and made a legend. The ninja that showed the world that no matter the odds or challenge, you can rise to overcome. The one ninja
that had more lawsuits pending than a PlayStation 4 that could play Xbox One games.
This is Revenge of Shinobi. Yeah, there's a reason for that. Turns out the guy in charge of this game thought the best idea for their ninja character to get the recognition he deserves was to literally beat the hell out of every other popular character in the world of fiction. And I'm talking Batman, the Terminator, Spider-Man, God frickin' Zilla. Yeah, sounds great. Only one problem. They didn't ask for permission from nobody. This game was taken off store shelves faster than Paradox could say Flashpoint.
Now, eventually the game was re-released, with a few minor edits. Godzilla was taken out, obviously, as was Batman. But strangely enough, Spider-Man was still in the game, because Marvel was mad at him for some reason.
Even Arnold Schwarzenegger stuck around to be a punching bag. Lawsuits and craziness aside, the game actually was pretty enjoyable.
Challenging, but enjoyable. Shinobi walks around everywhere like a boss and shoots out kunais by the handful. Going through the levels, you shoot these at anything that's not you, and collect the lovable power-ups as you progress. While in a tight pinch, Shinobi has some pretty cool jutsu moves that can aid you in your quests for whatever. A barrier, a jump higher jutsu, and the kill me jutsu. Yeah, don't use that one. We may do a review of this game in the future, so keep an eye out for it. Give it a try. It's got ninja stuff. I like it.
Gotta get Genesis like nothing ever before. Genesis is so much more. Genesis, gotta get Genesis.
This really does go without saying. I mean, we have spoken ad nauseum about this game and the entire Streets of Rage series. But if you want our thoughts on Streets of Rage 2 in a nutshell, well, here you go.
To us, this game is a good enough reason to buy a Sega Genesis console on its own.
The action-packed and diverse gameplay featuring 4 different but all likable characters, accentuated with colorful graphics, brilliant use of the musical capabilities of the machine, among other things, makes Streets of Rage 2 arguably the best beat-em-up game ever made. The entire series has earned a loyal fan base that to this day demands more of it, including us. We want more Streets of Rage. Fans have even gone to make their own Streets of Rage 4, which combines elements from the classic game seamlessly and have actually surpassed the official releases. Whether we get a proper sequel from Sega is anyone's guess, but at least we can always revisit the classics. While the first one started it all, and the third expanded the action gameplay and the difficulty, Streets of Rage 2 is the one that got it perfectly right, and it's always best to play with a friend.
Gotta get Genesis like nothing ever before. Genesis is so much more. Genesis, gotta get Genesis. Sega.
Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. What Sega game list would be complete without the Hedgehog that started it all? What kind of Sega list would be complete without one entry from the mascot that started the success of the company from the beginning? And in return, got nothing but... ugh. Back when Sega and Sonic was in his prime, the third installment in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise was far too big for one cartridge, or other reasons. The game as a whole would have taken far too long to develop, so Sega would release the first half of the game early enough for kids to have, and would release the later half of the game as an expansion pack that could also function as its own game called Sonic & Knuckles. Now, when these two cartridges were combined, the full and complete original form of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was finally established. and they formed Captain Planet. Complete with 3 playable characters and a 2-player option between Sonic and Tails where both could work together with combined efforts to fly and reach new areas. Over a dozen levels, each and every one beautifully designed with love and care, and a musical soundtrack helped composed by Michael Jackson himself was just the icing on the cake.
Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles is a masterpiece for the Sega Genesis. And, bottom line, a true masterpiece for video games in general.
The game was so huge, it had multiple save slots, and was filled to the brim with a chuckload of secret areas and hidden stages that kept the replay value at an all-time high, leaving players with tons of waste and options to finish the game. Not to mention it had multiple conclusions, final bosses, different outcomes for different characters, and 16 different Chaos Emeralds to find and get new powers and abilities. Yes, Sonic 3 and Knuckles clearly had it all, and to this day, no game has been as ambitious as Sega was to combine 2 different complete games on their own to create one ultimate big jam-packed adventure. While Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 and friends were still able to deliver on Sonic greatness all the same, Sonic 3 and Knuckles to us, and many, were unmatched and deserve a ton of respect. That's why we here at the Brotherhood Gaming give it the #1 spot on the top 10 Sega Genesis games. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching the BrotherhoodGaming.com. This was our top 10 Sega Genesis games ever made, best ever, best always, ever, and will be. So, guys, comment below. Let us know what your favorite video games on the Sega Genesis were. Clearly not as good as ours, but maybe if they're the same as ours, then, well, all's good in the hood. So, subscribe, follow us on all the, social status networking, and we will see you on the next video. What is it going to be? What top 10? What Tales of Retrospective? Whatever. We do a lot of things.